Are you the best footballer in the world right now?
I think so, yes. In my mind, I'm always the best. I don't care what the people are thinking, what they say. In my mind, not just this year, but always, I'm always the best. I'm always going to say that.
Welcome to Level Up Talks. No matter how far away your goal is, disappointment and frustration are binding you, there is always hope. There is always the one who cares, the one you love. There is always a way to level up.
So we're going to talk about how we're going to start a podcast. Like that?
Hi, Brad. That looks good.
All right, let's do
better.
this. All right, well, we're here.
Okay.
Where are we?
We're in Napanee.
We're in Napanee,
Yeah.
at your office.
Yeah, at the McCaffrey Realty Inc. office.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing the space.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I'm
for
excited about it.
coming.
Yeah.
Good. Yeah, me too.
I'm naturally excited. So we're going to talk about how we're going to start a podcast.
Yes. How are we going to start a podcast?
That's a great question. I've done a few. I appreciate you in this moment right now because I'm doing, I would say, my 5th or 6th, and I would have liked to have done 5 or 6 in my first 5 months. And I started about a year ago, so you can tell I'm behind the 8 ball.
Yeah. What do you think you stopped?
Why? I don't know. It's a good question. I don't think I have a really good answer for that because really,
okay.
I really shouldn't have stopped because it's something I really enjoy doing. As we've talked in the past, I'm curious. I like to ask questions and I like to learn. And secondarily, I like to provide value to people, especially around the area of people identifying who they are and doing things that they love.
Do you think it's because you didn't have somebody to interview or somebody to correspond with?
Yeah, well, that was my obstacle.
Yeah.
And so I hit a few speed bumps there of getting a few people in front of a mic or a camera. And it would be easy to point the finger at them, but there's lots of people out there to interview. So that's, the truth, the excuse, everything wrapped all into one. And it became winter and those types of things. I tend to slow down naturally at that time. So probably the accumulation of a lot of things stopped me from doing it. But when you said maybe we should do a podcast together, I was really excited about that for a couple of reasons. But one is accountability.
Yes.
And I think that would be a lot of fun. And then space. I think it's nice to have space to do it. That's just one less thing to have in the way.
Yeah, I think the accountability is a really big thing, right? Because it's difficult to get started. Once you get started, as to your point, I think a lot of people start these podcasts and they don't follow through just because either you run out of content or ideas, you just kind of run out of momentum. Yeah. So, having the accountability between the two of us, I think it's going to be really great.
Well, I think that there's some natural energy that happens there and excitement. Yeah. So, it's easy in the beginning to be excited by yourself doing things, but that progressively gets harder for me to do. And that's something I've just recognized in myself. So yeah, I think there's that element too where there's just that natural connection that I felt with you from the very beginning that every time we get together, there's just a heightened energy. Yeah. So I look forward to that element as much as I do the other things I said earlier.
And I think that's one of the things that I think the people who are going to be listening to us are really going to like. The fact that we have this dynamic of really pulling good questions and answers out of each other. And I think that's going to be one of the...
I can feel it already right now. Yeah.
It's going to be one of the best attributes, I think, of this podcast. Just because I find that you have this ability to make people really think. You ask really great questions. So it's not very often that people hit me with questions that I don't have an answer to. Either one that I can easily make up on the spot or one that I've already, thought about it in the past and had an answer to it. So I think that's going to be really interesting. I think it'll be good, too, if we're interviewing anyone. I think you're really great at pulling out great questions out of them, too. So you're natural at it. So I'm really excited to be doing this.
It's going to be a lot of fun. So, when I was thinking about getting together and chatting and thinking about what we're going to be doing, that's kind of where I wanted to start is, why are we doing this? Why do you want to do this?
Yeah, so that's a really great question, Brad. I want to do it because I think there's lots of great podcasts out there, but I feel that there's just this natural ability between the two of us, once again, asking the right questions. And it's not only, making me think about the questions that you're giving me, but having the audience also ask themselves those same questions, right? And kind of diving deeper in their conscious mind and really kind of pulling out little nuggets of wisdom into their life.
I've always found from watching and listening to podcasts is that oftentimes, I don't want to say we know the answers, but instinctually we do have a lot of probably the right inclinations or the right way to deal with things. But not until we hear someone else struggle with the same thing or have a similar challenge that we feel confident enough to take that step forward. And I know for myself, it's interesting. I think about all the things that I want to do right now are helping others, but at the same time, it's helping me be better. Yeah. It's helping me reach who I really want to be. I give a lot of advice because I've never been afraid to do that. But I should be looking in the mirror often when I'm giving that advice, like fear.
Yeah.
Fear's
a big one.
Yeah, like, why are you afraid? You would ask people the same question. Say, well, you shouldn't be afraid of that. There's nothing to be afraid of. But we both have fear.
Yeah.
This might be one of them. I know for me, it's getting up on stage.
Yes,
and
me
I want
too.
to share, my passion, my vision to an audience. But I'm afraid of what they might think about me.
I think that's everybody's fear, right? And I think fear across the line really boils down to what other people's perception is of you, right? If any type of fear, whether it's fear of running out of money, fear of, stepping onto stage, there's all sorts of, a fear of starting a new job, fear of quitting your job and starting something that you're really passionate about. It doesn't matter what it is. It all boils down to the same thing.
Well, I've heard fear of success too, which I have a tough time wrapping my mind around, but people will say that you could actually be afraid of actually succeeding, like what that might mean. Like some changes happen or have to happen in order for you to succeed. So those are, natural barriers that you put up in front of yourself so that you don't have to give those things up.
So do you think the fear of success is boiling down to just people not feeling like they're worthy of success, or what's going to happen if they do gain that success?
I don't know the answer to that. It's one that I don't naturally identify with. That's not to say that if I was laying on a couch somewhere and someone was digging deeper, maybe that is one of those things. But I think it's really I believe one of my great assets is that I care what other people think. But on the same token, that I think sometimes stops me from doing certain things because I care what people think.
Yeah.
I don't want Shannon to think, oh, geez, he didn't know what the hell he was talking about.
Yeah.
But
I think it's also recognizing that not everybody is going to have, 100% great podcast or great speech every single time. It's impossible. Human nature stops us from being, you can give it your 100%, but it doesn't mean it's going to relay to 100% of the population.
Well, that's
you can't be
sure.
everybody's cup of tea.
Sure.
So.
Well, and I'll drink that Kool-Aid all day long. And so will you.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, we'd be lying to say that we don't have fear. At least I don't want to put words in your mouth.
No,
but
absolutely.
I know we've had some chat.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
There's fear around a lot of different things. I think anytime you're kind of stepping out of that comfort zone, the fear comes in. And I don't care what kind of, comfort zone that may be. Maybe it's the first time you ever went skiing or skating or public speaking or anything. I think it's just anytime you're out of that little bubble, you start to feel the fear.
Yeah. So, coming back to that, and what we started getting energized about is why we're doing this. If you had to sum it up in a sentence or two, what do you think right now should be our theme? Not to say that it can't change, because I think that's something
we will
that
be changing.
Yeah, because for me that reduces barriers, especially the ones up here. Is when I know that it doesn't have to be static.
Yeah.
That things are dynamic and that there's ebbs and flows. And as we grow, obviously our content would grow. So, what do you want out of the gate? What's your kind of instinct?
My gut really just says that I want people to think. I think that we're consumed in a bubble. I really feel like, my mission is to really bring people out of consciousness. I think we've talked about this before. I really feel like most of the world is walking around like a zombie. They're stuck in their head the majority of the time. They're not living in the moment. They're not staying present. They're not asking questions. They're not really thinking. They're just operating in autopilot.
Right.
They're getting up, they're getting dressed, they're brushing their teeth, all in the exact same fashion that they do. It's like Groundhog Day over and over and over again, right? And they're going to work and they're eating the same lunches and then they're coming home cooking the same dinners. Like we live in this constant state of normalcy. And I
that's
think
exactly what it is.
Yeah, and I think that my mission is to bring people out of that and make them start becoming
abnormal.
Consciously aware.
And be proud of it. Yeah.
And to realize that they actually can control their life. They can change their life and that things don't have to be complacent. And it's good to have some stability. I'm not saying that I don't have stability.
Or routine and whatnot. Like those would be buzzwords we would use all the time.
Yeah. But for me, I think what I would love to really see out of this podcast is really some thinking, deep level thinking, make people get out of their box.
Yeah. Well, something I've been saying recently is question your own thinking.
Okay.
So, I know that I have a lot of beliefs, and one of the things that I think, again, is one of my strengths is that I have those, and I'm not afraid to share them, but I also want to hear yours.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem if we disagree, which I hope that we can keep that dynamic, or we can develop that rapport as we move along, that we don't have to always agree on a topic, but respect it. Again, that doesn't mean agree. But I know for me, one of the really important things is for people to know who they are and, really get at the root of what that is and what their passion is. And again, that word is used way too much. I've been coining a phrase, do you. I really want to help, and help isn't the right word. I want to empower people to identify who they are and live that life. To the fullest.
Do you think somebody will ever know exactly who they are?
I think it's evolution. I think you evolve and you change. And I think, again, being dynamic, every experience that you have changes you.
You're
good or
always
bad.
evolving,
You're
always changing.
evolving.
You're always learning from the mistakes.
Yeah.
But I think it's it's having that deep-seated thinking around your mistakes, why you made them.
Being open.
Being open.
Yeah.
Being vulnerable. I think that's the biggest one, right?
Yeah. Authentic and vulnerability has been something I've been saying too often as well, but getting at that true sense of who you are, and that's that vulnerability. The best conversations I have is when I share my feelings and I know that they are as well. And I've connected with a handful of people over the last year by using that practice, and instantly creating friendships that are deeper than a lot of the friendships that I've had for many years.
And why do you think they're deeper? Just because somebody has really
I think,
been vulnerable and dumped on you?
Well, superficially, I think a lot of times we just go through the motions and have the conversation about the football game last week, or the weather, and, all of those stereotypical conversations. And whenever you get to have a conversation that matters, like really makes a difference in someone's life, there's a bond that happens.
Yeah.
When you're talking about struggles with kids or your wife or with work or, money or whatever the case may be, just being honest, you identify with somebody on a much deeper level than you would if you're talking about some of these other things that we always talk about.
Well, I think it's the one thing that really, I think it's the one thing that really unites all of us. We've all had struggles, right? Your whole life is a struggle. And I think, I don't think it necessarily has to be a struggle. I think people are struggling more than they need to be struggling, but I think it's in those struggles that we really feel connected with people, right? Because everybody's had some form of a heartbreak. Everybody's had some sort of person stab them in the back. Yeah. Everybody's had some sort of trauma probably as a child or in, in their adult years. Yeah. So we all can associate with, everybody's had fear over money for the most part. So I think there's a lot of different connectors that really aren't talked about, because I think once again, people are afraid. They're afraid to open up and share those things because they're afraid of being embarrassed or...
That's where my curiosity comes from. I think I want to really get at the root of why you're feeling the way you're feeling or doing what you're doing.
So maybe we're really focusing on conversations that matter. Yeah. You just mentioned that, right? Yeah. You want to have more conversations that really matter. Yeah. Getting to the root of that and, in a variety of people, not just, I think the key is that often we're hearing these deep-rooted conversations with people who are successful.
Right.
You know, it's kind of like a rags to riches story.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people who might not have achieved success, but there's still great insight.
Well, define success, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a great conversation at some point as well.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that is so subjective.
For sure.
Such as everything I think that we put out there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think we're, getting closer to something there.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to watch this back and say, wow, geez, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I wrote a lot of things down here that I think we should discuss as we embark on our episode 0 and get closer to episode 1. But I think that's the foundation piece, is to really kind of get clear on who we are, not as individuals per se, but who we are as a podcast, and come up with obviously titles and things like that. So it'd be interesting if and when we release this, if we get some feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and what the community would like to see.
Yeah, because I think that influences us as well. What I want to be really clear on is not deviate on who we are based on what people want for content.
Yeah.
Because then it doesn't stay as authentic.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
But to take that feedback and make sure that, we're honing in on a message that is, wanting to be received. Mm-hmm. So where do we go from here? What were some of the things that you thought that we should discuss today?
Well, I think we really have to get to the root of, what kind of guests do we want to bring on, the people that we want to communicate with, and really what the core is that we're trying to get out of this. And I think we've covered a little bit about that, really getting deep-rooted and vulnerable with people coming on so that we can get, good little pieces of wisdom out there. There's a lot of surface conversations, to your point, right? The water cooler conversations. I don't think people are really interested in listening to that in a podcast. I think they want something that's going to make them think outside the box. And I know one of the podcasts that I love listening to is Oprah Winfrey's podcast, where she brings on guests. And I find that every podcast that I listen to just really makes me think.
Right.
I walk away usually going, oh, wow, that was really, it's not only inspiring, but I find that it's just making me really think and pause and go, oh, that's interesting. I never thought about that topic before.
Right.
So I think something along those lines really kind of intrigues me, getting to the heart of, what people have learned and gotten out of their sort of vulnerable moments, fear moments, because I think that's really where people are struggling. People aren't struggling with the day-to-day stuff. They're struggling with what they're struggling with, the fear, the overwhelm, the trying to do a work-life balance. So I think if we can find some people who have...
There's a loaded topic, is balance.
Yeah, balance. It's a great topic.
It's a great topic.
It's something that I just got to the root of in the last couple of years. As you know, we've had this conversation before. I spent the first probably 7 or 8 years of my career just working insane amount of hours and having no balance. It was 95% work and 5% home life. And that has its toll. It has its toll on you physically, mentally, emotionally. It takes the toll on your family. Yeah. And so it's really important. It's less important, I think, to make a lot of money than it is to have a good work-life balance. But I think what people don't understand is that you can have both. You can make a lot of money and still have a balance. I had this conversation yesterday with somebody trying to balance. And I think the reason why I loaded is that I'm not so sure it's how some people conceptualize balance. Like you have 50% over here and 50% over here. Yeah. And this has been talked about in other forums, but, having concentrated effort or time spent with family isn't just the time you spend with them. Like if you're in the same house as somebody but you're on the phone all the time, 100%.
That's not time spent with family, and that's not balanced out. But if you spend concentrated even a half hour with your son playing football or, coloring with your daughter or playing baseball with her or whatever you choose to do, that is balance compared to your 8 hours a day at work. Yeah. It doesn't have to be another 8 hours with 100%. Your kids or your spouse. That just doesn't happen. Certainly. It has to
be the quality time, right? It's not just
the quality of the time.
Yeah. It's not the time, it's the quality of the time, for sure. I mean, there's 101 topics.
101 topics.
I think these are all the things that, people want to talk more about and hear other people who've kind of broken through these barriers and have come out on the other side, and what tips and pointers they have that they've learned from these sort of downfalls in their life.
What kind of intro music do we have?
intro music.
Yeah, like
Yeah.
Is it you singing like we were joking
Yeah,
about earlier?
yeah, I should sing,
back-
and you can be the backup.
Something, yeah. Yeah, we'll have to test out
Yeah.
that theory before we make everybody listen
I think it
to
should be dramatic.
Yeah, dramatic. Yeah, I think something upbeat, because
Oh yeah,
like when I think
okay.
like something like set the tone, yeah, I don't know. Like I think about
it
all the
should be
intros
inspiring.
Inspiring and
Should be
yeah,
inspiring.
absolutely uplifting, inspiring. I don't know. I come up with those words.
Yeah, because that's what our show is, right?
Right.
Like, what is our show? It's going to be
And that's the
uplifting
other
and
thing
inspiring.
is not only I want to make people think like we've been talking about, but I do want to lift people up and
We
to
wanna
take them to
inspire
that
them.
other level, right? The next level, but
Yeah.
whatever that is, I want people to move forward.
Yes. Progress.
Progress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because isn't that what we've been really focused on? That's what brought us together.
Yeah.
It's the personal
Well,
development.
that's where I'm at.
Yeah.
I started, what did I call it? Steps to Success. I started to, Daily Steps.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it was called. I started my podcast, Steps to Success, but Daily Steps was just me starting to document some of the journey that we've been discussing and uncovering. But I forgot where I was going with that. I guess it doesn't
Okay.
matter.
I mean, I think what we're doing is like personal development 101.
Yeah.
Either helping people step into that line of personal development or to help them continue on that personal
Right.
development line.
Right. Yeah,
Make them
that's-
think, make
yeah.
them, go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's what I was, I guess, saying is that I hit a birthday. Someone asked me a question like, "Did you hit like some kind of milestone that happened in your life?" And it was Cheryl Shurtleff. I don't know if you know who Cheryl is, but Cheryl, she asked me like, "Brad, like I've seen some changes, especially your daily steps videos or what you're doing there. Like, what's happened? Like, why is that happening?" And I couldn't really articulate why other than I wanted to.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's enough. But she wanted to dig deeper, and she said, "Did you have like a major birthday?" Because that's something else that happens is when I think you have a major birthday or something happens in your life, it makes you
Trauma.
think.
Yeah.
It makes you think.
Yeah.
And
when your friends gets diagnosed with a disease or
Yeah.
something, it just makes you
that's right.
burst out
Yeah,
of that
someone
bubble.
said last night on a podcast or something I was watching, there's nothing that'll make people think more than death.
Yeah. It's true.
And appreciate life.
And yet
which is-
somebody should be really...
We should be thinking about that now.
Yeah.
Gary Vaynerchuk is one thing he says is what 3 words of motivation? You're going to die.
Yeah.
And when I really think about that, I think, yeah, geez, what do I want my legacy to be? What do I want to be remembered for?
Mm-hmm.
You know, how do I want to impact people before I go?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you know, why will I be smiling my last days?
Yeah. Living
You
your
know?
life without regret. That's a
Yeah,
whole
well,
topic altogether,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
We could do a whole
That's
entire...
inevitable, though.
Yeah.
You know, there's regrets.
Mm-hmm. There is? You have regret?
Living with regret. Or
Okay.
living because, there's things that I've done in my life that I'm probably not proud of, whether it was taking money from my parents when I was younger and didn't tell them about it. It's called stealing. You know, there's those things. I regret that.
But that's what develops and makes you who you are.
But there's the other topic is what you tell yourself with what you do. So it's not what happens to you. It's, you know, what you tell yourself what happens to you, you know.
That all formed and made you Brad Way.
Yeah. And I think
Right?
that's some of the things that I've done well is my personal self-talk, even though I've been challenged at times. But anyways, I don't know how we keep
I know,
back
we
to
divert.
so
We
we
keep-
keep
this is
going
what we
back.
do, though.
This is what we do. But we were talking about intro, so like something inspiring, something uplifting.
Yeah.
So we'll have to do some research on that.
Yeah.
And I'll share with you. I invested a little bit in a program, an online resource of music that we can tap into.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah. What else did we want to plow through here? Show plans. Have any thoughts on how long you want an episode to be?
Well, to your point that we were discussing earlier, as long as the content is good and we're running with it, we can go. Although you and I are notorious, we could sit here for 8 hours.
Yeah.
You know, we could go a whole entire day talking.
Exactly.
So I think the key for us will be really to pick a topic and dive deep on that topic.
Right.
As opposed to getting all off on a tangent like we
Right.
did today,
Yeah.
where we're veering off on 100 different ones.
I wonder if that'll be possible.
That's a great question. I mean, I think if we're interviewing guests, it's not possible. It's not going to happen.
I think maybe people might like it for that
Yeah.
reason too. Like, we just don't know where this is going. I know they were going to talk about football, but why are we talking about sandwiches?
I know,
or
right?
whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, in terms of plans, like some people talk about half an hour. Like, that's a long time. Anymore, I don't think people think that because we're listening to podcasts that are half an hour quite easily. Again, based on content and value. So yeah, I feel quite comfortable doing whatever feels
I think
natural.
half an hour to an hour. I think once you get over that hour mark, it's a little much.
That's a barrier for me.
Yeah.
Mentally.
It's hard to get people to
although I listened to and watched a 6.5. Why did I have 6.5 hours? So it was like up till 1
Gary
o'clock.
V?
Yeah, so it was Gary Vaynerchuk. He did it, and he put it out there on purpose like that.
Yeah.
He's watching how many people completed that.
Oh, definitely.
And people do.
Yeah.
Now, he has the stage and the integrity and the rapport to obviously garner that attention.
But he's so wild and crazy. You don't know what he's going to say or do next, right?
Right. So that's why maybe we don't want to have something too scripted.
Yeah. Okay. To your point, that's a really good point for sure. We'll just go.
Well,
with
you
it.
made the point. I'm just actually stamping it. Yeah.
We'll just go with that. And I think if people don't like what they're hearing, they're going to shut it off.
How do we promote?
How do we promote? I don't know.
I mean,
that's a great question. We're just going to have to
like organically. Like I feel like the energy, if we can keep what we're doing right now, would naturally have an audience. That's my hope. Am I wrong? Like,
yeah, I think you're wrong.
Yeah.
I think organically, I mean, maybe. I guess if the content's really great, then so-and-so tells so-and-so, and it will organically compound that way. But I think, we're going to have to do some form of marketing or advertising, just...
I think about guests too. Like, so one of my thoughts early on when I started to do mine was to interview people because obviously that content's easier, but then you bring in their tribe. So, naturally that's one way that I think would be our approach, to bring in other circles as a result of their connections.
You're right. I think that's definitely going to be the key because then their audience is going to watch and get hopefully connected to one of the two of us, and then that's going to grow from there.
Right.
I don't know. I worry less about who's watching. As long as one person is watching and getting value, I don't really care.
Right.
If it affects and changes somebody, just one person, then it's worthwhile for us to do this.
That has to be the goal. Yeah.
Yeah.
That has to be the goal.
That's
ultimately to have one listener.
Yeah, one
That's
listener.
it.
That's
just
one.
You.
Just one.
So where do we go from here? I mean, I think we've started to capture a lot of things that we can go back and look at and formulate a little bit of a plan.
Yeah, I think we'll try and get an idea of a title of some sort that we want to go with, that we can do off camera so we're not boring people with details, and ask for maybe some feedback on that, what people want to hear, what they want to be inspired by, and then deciding how often we want to get together. I would think probably weekly would be good. I think so. I think time commitment wise, it's hard to do more than that at this point.
Absolutely.
But I think once a week is a good commitment to have, and I'm excited. Let's do it.
All right. I'm excited too. I think it's going to be great.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks for inviting me on this crazy journey.
Yeah, well, thanks for, just mentioning or suggesting that we do this together.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of personal growth that I'm going to have as a result.
Yeah, likewise.
Yeah. So thanks.
No problem. So I think our mission for our next one is to really release who we are, what we're doing, and then to really do our first episode, probably. This is episode 0.
Yeah. So will the next one be 0.5? Like, are we that much closer? Or like?
Well, I guess it depends on what happens after.
I guess we'll find out, right? It'll be like, this is episode 0.2.
0.2.
I kind of feel like the days of Windows 3.1, 3.11, what was that advancement?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody really remembers or knows.
It's like iPhones. Was there something before the iPhone 4?
Yeah,
if there was 4, then there was 5,
there was 3.
6,
there was
7.
a 3. But there must have been...
and then we just went into XR?
Yeah. The naming conventions, I don't know. Maybe we should be, a little bit more predictable?
Yeah,
or no?
maybe. Yeah, no, I think we should be a little bit... I think we should aim for episode 1.
I think you're more predictable than I am, though.
Yeah,
I'm
possibly.
a little bit more wild,
Yeah,
but I think that there's layers there. I think we can find out.
We're going to break through. I think episode 1, though, really should be introducing really who we are, so that anyone that's listening and that doesn't know maybe my backstory or your backstory, where that's coming from. And then episode 2 maybe could be bringing on our first guest.
Yeah. Okay.
Good.
Great.
To be continued.
To be continued.
Right on. Good work.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye-bye.